But I just want to tell her in front of millions of people all over the country that I love her very much.
January 2024. The Emmy Awards stage. Danny DeVito stands at the podium, joking with the crowd about his old TV family from Cheers. Then, out of nowhere, he says her name. Even Rhea won 4 for Cheers. The camera cuts to Rhea Perlman. She's laughing. Surprised. A little stunned. Because Danny DeVito just gave his ex-wife a public shout-out, on national television, at an award show where they weren't even each other's date. Here's the strange part. Danny and Rhea aren't together. They haven't lived in the same house in years. But they also never got divorced. For over 5 decades, these two have written one of the strangest love stories in Hollywood. A marriage that ended, twice, but somehow never actually ended. They built a life together. 3 kids. A production company behind some of the biggest movies in Hollywood history. Decades of red carpets, awards shows, and quiet devotion. Then it all seemed to fall apart. But what happened between Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman wasn't a typical Hollywood breakup. No scandal. No public feud. No bitter divorce filing splashed across the tabloids. Instead, something far more confusing. Far more human. So why did two people who clearly still care about each other choose to separate, not once, but twice? And why, even now, do they refuse to sign the final papers? The answer says more about love, ambition, and growing older than almost any Hollywood story you've heard before. Before the fame, before the movies, before any of it, there were just 2 struggling actors in New Jersey. Danny DeVito wasn't always the loud, lovable face audiences know today. In the early 1970s, he was a short, scrappy actor trying to get noticed in off-Broadway theater. Rhea Perlman was doing the same thing, just a few blocks away. They met in 1971, on the set of a small stage production. Neither of them was famous. Neither of them had money. What they had was chemistry, and a shared hunger to make it in a business that chews people up and spits them out. They stuck together through years of nothing. No big roles. No big breaks. Just rent to pay and auditions to lose. Then, slowly, things started to shift. Danny landed a role on Taxi in 1978, playing the foul-mouthed dispatcher Louis De Palma. It became one of the most beloved sitcoms of its era. Around the same time, Rhea booked a role on a new show set in a Boston bar. That show was Cheers. It would go on to become one of the most successful sitcoms ever made, and Rhea would win 4 Emmy Awards playing Carla Tortelli. 2 unknown actors from New Jersey were suddenly 2 of the most recognizable faces on American television. In 1982, after more than a decade together, Danny and Rhea finally got married. But their success didn't stop there. While building their acting careers, the couple also launched a production company called Jersey Films. It backed some of the most important movies of the 1990s. Pulp Fiction. Erin Brockovich. Out of Sight. Quietly, behind the scenes, this couple was shaping the future of Hollywood. They had 3 children. Lucy, born in 1983. Grace, in 1985. And Jake, in 1987. To the outside world, they looked like the rare Hollywood success story. 2 working actors who found fame, built a family, and stayed grounded while everyone around them seemed to fall apart. For 30 years, they were the couple everyone pointed to and said, "See? It can work." But behind closed doors, something was quietly shifting. And nobody outside their family saw it coming. By the 2000s, Danny DeVito's career had taken on a strange and unexpected second wind. He joined It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, playing the unhinged Frank Reynolds. The show became a cult phenomenon. And DeVito, now in his 60s, was busier than ever. Rhea, meanwhile, had spent decades juggling acting, directing, and raising 3 children, largely while Danny's filming schedule kept him away from home for long stretches. On the surface, nothing seemed wrong. They still showed up together at premieres. They still looked like the same devoted couple fans had watched for 30 years. But inside the marriage, the pressure had been building for a long time. Both of them were intensely ambitious. Both of them loved their work, not as a side interest, but as something close to identity. And after 3 decades of balancing 2 demanding careers, raising a family, and running a company together, something had quietly worn thin. It wasn't a scandal. It wasn't betrayal. It was something slower, and harder to talk about, the kind of distance that builds when 2 people spend years pulling in different directions, while still loving each other. Friends close to the family later described it less as a falling out, and more as a slow drift. The kind that doesn't make headlines, until it already has. In October 2012, after 30 years of marriage, Danny DeVito's representative confirmed the news that shocked fans everywhere. Danny and Rhea were separating. No explanation. No details. Just a short statement, and a wave of disbelief from people who had grown up watching this couple as proof that Hollywood marriages could last. But what came next was even more surprising than the separation itself. For a couple that had just ended a 30-year marriage, Danny and Rhea behaved nothing like 2 people who were truly finished. They kept showing up together. At family events. At their children's milestones. There was no Cold War. No public sniping. No fight over money or property splashed across the press. If anything, the warmth between them seemed almost untouched. And then, just months later, came the twist nobody expected. In March 2013, less than a year after announcing their split, Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman quietly got back together. No grand announcement. No dramatic reunion interview. Just 2 people who had stepped away from each other, only to realize the space between them didn't feel like freedom. It felt like a mistake. For a while, it seemed like the story had its happy ending. The couple that broke up, and found their way back. But real relationships rarely follow a script. Years passed. The same pressures that pulled them apart the first time hadn't disappeared, they had simply gone quiet. Danny's career was busier than ever. Rhea kept building her own path. The push and pull between 2 strong, independent people never really went away. And in March 2017, history repeated itself. Danny and Rhea separated for a second time. This time, no shockwave through Hollywood. Just a quiet acceptance that maybe this was simply who they were. 2 people who loved each other deeply, but couldn't sustain living life under the same roof. What almost no one expected was what they would choose to do next. Or rather, what they would choose not to do. After the second separation, most couples would have moved toward the obvious next step. Lawyers. Paperwork. A final divorce. Danny and Rhea didn't. Despite living apart, despite 2 separations in 5 years. They never filed for divorce. They simply continued living as 2 separate people who remained, on paper and in spirit, husband and wife. For years, fans speculated about what was really going on. Was this a marriage in name only? Were they avoiding the weight of finally ending things? Or was something else happening behind the scenes? In 2023, Rhea finally addressed it directly. She admitted the early days of their separation were genuinely difficult. There were real reasons behind why they pulled apart, she said, though she chose not to lay out every detail publicly. It took time, she explained, for the 2 of them to reach what she called a decent understanding with each other. It wasn't the tidy answer fans wanted. No single villain. No one dramatic event to point to. Just 2 people slowly figuring out how to love each other without living together. Rhea also opened up about a part of this chapter that surprised many fans, the loneliness that came with it. Living alone. Adjusting to a quieter life. Finding companionship in her dog, rather than her husband of decades. It was a strange kind of honesty. Not bitter. Not angry. Just real. Meanwhile, Danny never criticized Rhea publicly. Never spoke about their separation with resentment. If anything, his public comments leaned the opposite direction. Warm, almost affectionate, like a man who never quite let go of what they had built together. And then came the moment that made headlines all over again. January 2024. The Emmy Awards, delayed months earlier by the industry strikes, finally took place. Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman both attended. Not as a couple. As presenters, each reuniting separately with their old TV casts. Then, during his moment on stage with his always sunny co-stars, Danny brought up Rhea. Unprompted. He pointed out her 4 Emmy wins from Cheers, decades earlier. The cameras caught her reaction. Caught completely off guard. Laughing. Visibly moved. It was a small moment. Maybe 10 seconds. But it told a bigger story than any headline could. Here were two people, separated for years, never officially divorced, still finding small ways to celebrate each other, in public, for the world to see. The truth, it turns out, was never about scandal. Never about betrayal. It was something far more relatable. Two ambitious, independent people who built an extraordinary life together, who loved their children fiercely, who supported each other's careers for decades. But who eventually discovered that loving someone, and being able to live with them, aren't always the same thing. Rhea has said she doesn't regret the life they built, even with its complications. She still calls Danny her husband. She still considers their family the most important thing in her life. And Danny, even now in his 80s, still shows up. At family gatherings. At award shows. In small, unexpected gestures that suggest some bonds simply don't follow normal rules. But the bigger question still lingers. After everything, 2 separations, years of living apart, and a marriage that technically never ended, will they ever fully close that chapter? Or stay exactly where they are, forever in between? Today, Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman remain legally married. They live separately. They see each other often. They speak almost daily. Their 3 children, now grown with families of their own, keep them connected in ways that go far beyond paperwork. Rhea has called their bond a mixed bag. Sometimes lonely. Sometimes liberating. Danny, true to his nature, lets his actions speak louder than interviews, showing up for Rhea in small, public moments that say more than any statement ever could. It's not the fairy tale fans once imagined. It's something messier. And maybe more honest. A love story still being written, decades later, on its own unconventional terms. So what do you think? Were Danny and Rhea right to stay married without living together, or should they have just moved on completely? Some people think it's beautiful. Others think it's confusing. Where do you land? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what real love looks like to you, after 30, 40, 50 years. And if this story moved you, subscribe. There are more